Heir of Fire, Chapter 38. Manon gave a foot of spider silk to the overseer after he carefully grafted it into Ambrox's wings. She got an extra, lots of it, in case it ever wore down, and it was now locked in the false bottom of a trunk. She told no one where she had been or why Ambrox's wings now shimmered in a certain light. Ashton would have murdered her for the risk, and her grandmother would have butchered Ashton for not being there. Manon was in no mood to replace her second and find a new member for the 13. Once Ambrox had healed, Manon brought him to the mouth of the northern Fang to try the crossing. Before, his wings had been too weak to attempt the plunge, but with the silk reinforcements, he'd stand a far greater chance. But the risk remained, which is why Ashton and Sora waited behind her, already on their mounts. If things went wrong, if Ambrox couldn't pull up or the silk failed, she was to jump. Jump away from him. Let him die while one of them caught her in the claws of their wyverns. Manon wasn't too keen on that plan, but it was the only way Ashton and Sora would agree to let her do it. Though Manon was the Blackbeak heir, they would have locked her in a wyvern pen rather than let her make the crossing without the proper precautions. She might have called them soft-hearted and given them the beatings they deserved, but it was smart. Tensions were worse than ever, and she wouldn't put it past the Yellowleg's heir to spook Ambrox during the crossing. Maena nodded her readiness to her second and third before approaching her beast. Not many had gathered, but Iskra was on the viewing platform, smiling faintly. Manon checked the stirrups, the saddle, and the reins one more time. Ambrox tense and snarling. "Let's go," she said to him, pulling the reins to lead them a bit farther ahead so she could mount him. He still had plenty of space to get a running start, and with his new wings, she knew he would be fine. They'd done steep plunges and hard upswings before, but Ambrox wouldn't move. "Now!" she slapped at him, tugging hard. Ambrox turned an eye to her and growled. She lightly smacked his leathery cheek. "Now!" Those hind legs dug in, and he tucked his wings in tight. "Ambrox!" He was looking at the crossing, then back at her. Wide-eyed, petrified, utterly petrified. Useless, stupid, cowardly beast. "Stop it," she said, moving to climb into the saddle instead. "Your wings are fine now." She reached for his haunch, but he reared away, the ground shaking as he slammed down. Behind her, Ashton and Sora murmured to their mounts, who had skittered back and snapped at Ambrox, and at each other. There was a soft laugh from the viewing platform, and Manon's teeth popped out. "Ambrox, now!" She reached for the saddle again. He bucked away, slamming into the wall and shrinking back. One of the men brought out a whip, but she held it a hand. "Don't take another step," she snapped, iron nails out. Whips only made Ambrox more uncontrollable. She turned to her mount. "You rutting coward," she hissed at the beast, pointing to the crossing. "Get back in line." Ambrox met her stare, refusing to back down. "Get in line, Ambrox!" "Can't understand you," Ashton said quietly. "Yes, Manon shut her mouth. But she hadn't told him that the theory, not yet. She turned back to the wyvern. "If you don't let me into that saddle and make that jump, I'm going to have you confined to the darkest, smallest pit in this bloody mountain." He bared his teeth. She bared hers. The staring contest lasted for a full minute, one humiliating and raging minute. "Fine," she spat out, turning from the beast. He was a waste of her time. "Have him locked up, wherever he'll be the most miserable," she said to the overseer. "He's not coming out until he's willing to make the crossing." The overseer gaped, and Manon slapped her fingers at Ashton and Sora to signal them to dismount. She'd never hear the end of this, not from her grandmother, or from the Yellowlegs witches, or of Miss Kira, who was already making her way across the floor of the pit. "Why don't you stay, Manon?" Iskira called. "I could show you your wyvern how it's done." "Keep walking," Sora murmured to Manon, but she didn't need a reminder. "They say it's not the beasts who are the problem, but the riders," Iskira went on, loud enough for everyone to hear. Manon didn't turn. She didn't want to see them take Ambrose back to the gate, to wherever hole they lock him in. Stupid, useless beast. Though, Iskira said thoughtfully, perhaps your mount needs a bit of discipline. Let's go, Sorrel coaxed, pressing in tight to Manon's side. Ashton walked a step behind, guarding Manon's back. Give that to me, Iskira barked at someone. He just needs the right encouragement. A whip snapped behind them, and there was a roar of pain and fear. Manon stopped dead. Ambrose was huddling against the wall. Iskira stood before him, whip bloody from the line she sliced down his face, narrowly missing his eye, her iron teeth shining bright. Iskira smiled at Manon as she raised the whip again and struck. Ambrose yelped. Ashton and Sorrel weren't fast enough to stop Manon as she hurled past and tackled Iskira. Teeth and nails out, they rolled across the dirt floor, flipping and shredding and biting. Manon thought she might be roaring so loud the hall shook. Feet slammed into her stomach and the air shot out of her as Iskira kicked her off. Manon hit the earth, spat out a mouthful of blue blood, and was up in a heartbeat. The Yellowleg's air slashed with an iron-tipped hand, a blow that could have severed through bone and flesh. Manon ducked past her guard and threw Iskira into the unforgiving stone. Iskira groaned above the shouts of swarming witches, and Manon brought her fist down into her face. Her knuckles howled in pain, but all she could see was that whip, the pain in Ambrox's eyes, the fear. Struggling against Manon's weight, Iskira swiped at her face. Manon reeled back, the blow cutting down her neck. She didn't quite feel the stinging or the warm trickle of blood. She just drew back her fist, knee digging hard into Iskira's chest, and struck, again and again. She lifted her aching fist once more, but there were hands at her wrist, under her arms, hauling her off. Manon thrashed against them, still screaming, the sound wordless and endless. Manon! Sorrel rolled in her ear, and nails cut into her shoulder. Not enough to damage, but to make her pause, to realize there were witches everywhere, in the pit and in the viewing platform, gaping. Sword raised, Astrid was standing between her and Iskira. On the ground, face bloodied and swollen, her own seconds sword out and poised to meet Astrid's. He is fine, Sorrel said, squeezing her tighter. Ambrose is fine, Manon. Look at him. Look at him and see that he's fine. Breathing through her mouth thanks to her bloody clogged nose, Manon obeyed and found him crouching, eyes wide and on her. His wound had already clotted. Iskira hadn't moved an inch from where Manon had thrown her into the floor. But Ashton and the other second were growling, ready to launch into another fight that they very well ripped this mountain apart. Enough! Manon shook off Sorrel's grip. Enough. Manon shook off Sorrel's firm grip. Everyone went dead silent as Manon wiped her bloody nose and mouth on the back of her wrist. Iskira snarled at her from the floor, blood from her broken nose leaking into her cut lip. You touch him again, Manon said, and I'll drink the marrow from your bones. The Yellowleg's air got a second beating that night from her mother in the mess hall, plus 2 lashes of the whip from the blow she'd given Ambrose. She'd offered them to Manon, but Manon refused under the gauze of indifference. Her arm was actually too stiff and aching to use the whip with any efficiency. Manon had just entered Ambrox's cage the next day. Ashton on her heels when the blue-blood heir appeared in the stairway entrance, her red-haired second close behind. Manon, her face still swollen, and eye beautifully black, gave the witch a tight nod. There were other pens down here, though she rarely ran into anyone else, especially not the 2 heirs. But Petra paused at the bars. And it was then that Manon noticed the goat's leg in her second's arms. I heard the fight was something to behold, Petra said, keeping a respectful distance from Manon and the open door to the pen. Petra smiled faintly. Iskira looks worse. Manon flickered her brow up, though the motion made her face throb. Petra held out a hand her second, and the witch passed her the leg of meat. I also heard that you're 13 and your mounts only eat the meat they catch. Makili caught this on our morning flight. She wanted to share with Ambrose. I don't accept meat from rival clans. Are we rivals? Petra said. I thought the king of Ardalan had convinced us to fly under one banner again. Manon took a long breath. What do you want? I have training in 10 minutes. Petra's second bristled, but the heir smiled. I told you, my Keeley wanted to give this to him. Oh, she told you, Manon sneered. Petra cocked her head. Doesn't your wyvern talk to you? Ambrose was watching with as much awareness as the other witches. They don't talk. Petra shrugged, tapping a hand casually over her heart. Don't they? She left the goat leg before walking off into the righteous gloom of the pens. Manon threw the meat away.